I apologize, I will speak in English because my German is really bad, so it would be a disaster. So what I wanted to say is, you heard it. You heard my boss, our boss, André Calantzopoulos, the CEO of Philip Morris, which is the largest cigarette maker in the world, with brands like Marlboro, explaining that we want to stop selling cigarettes and we want to do this as fast as possible. So you have to imagine that I'm now, since a year and a half, the managing director for Philip Morris in Switzerland. The challenge for myself, for my organization, to shift and to really pivot 180 degrees. And also for people my generations, because I've been working for Philip Morris for 28 years. This is the only company I know, like some of my colleagues, we've been there growing up over the years, and having to deal with this challenge, and having to reinvent ourselves in an organization where we spend a lot of years building brands, building a category, talking to adult smokers with brands like Marlboro, which I was part of building in my past days, and now saying we're going to stop doing that and shift to something else. And that's what I would like to share with you. Try to get some, and share with you some of the learnings we have, and I have, based on this experience, which is really also a very exciting journey for us. So very quickly, I'd like to, it's a very interesting contrast with the presentation you've seen before. We are more of a giant, an old industry, which is trying to start to behave like maybe a startup in some ways, which is not very easy. So Philip Morris, a company with more than 80,000 employees around the world. I think we are around 180 markets in the world. We have today like 150 million consumers who purchase our product on a daily basis. And we have some of the biggest brands in the world, including Marlboro, which is the largest one that we built over years and years and years, because this company is more than 100 years old. Now, what's interesting also is we're also in Switzerland for more than 54 years. And in Switzerland, we have about more than 3,500 employees, because we have our HQ for the world, which is based in Lausanne, worldwide HQ for Philip Morris. We have also our R&D research facility for the world, which is based in Neuchâtel, which is a really big part of what we're doing today. We have the commercial area for Philip Morris Switzerland, which I'm managing. And we have also some manufacturing facility, which are producing for the Swiss market, but for also more than 40 markets around the world. So that's who we are, kind of. Now the question is, why do we do that? So we are a company pretty big, consistent, facing issues for years and years and years, and suddenly we say, you know what, we're going to stop doing what we've been doing and what made us who we are. And that's a very interesting thing, because from the beginning, for years and years and years, we understand that we are part of a big problem which has to do with health, because smoking, like anything which has to do with tobacco or nicotine, are products that you should avoid. Absolutely. So never start smoking, never start using any nicotine products. It's the best thing you can do. And the other best thing you can do if you're on them is to quit. The problem is that you've got a lot of people who don't want to quit, and you have a lot of people who cannot quit. Okay? So this is a major issue that we have to tackle. So if you look at the stats, you look at even in Switzerland, you have what we call the prevalence, explaining that over the last 10 years, number of smokers, the prevalence of smoking in a country like Switzerland remains the same. It's a major issue. And if you look worldwide, WHO plans to have at least 1 billion smokers still in the years to come. So this is a major issue that companies like us have an opportunity to tackle, and to look at what we created and start looking at them very differently, pivot and disrupt what we've been doing. Now, what's interesting also is for us to understand that the problem of, when it comes to cigarettes, has to do with the combustion. This is mainly where the issue is. Because you're burning an organic tobacco, an organic component, and out of that you create a smoke with harmful chemicals. This is like when you barbecue, you know that the taste of barbecue is pretty interesting, it's pretty good, many people enjoy the barbecue, but we know that what we get out of the barbecue is not very healthy. Okay? And I think that's kind of similar. You burn an organic material. So from the beginning, we understood also, and we started to work on that years and years ago, that we have to find ways not to burn tobacco anymore, but to come with an alternative way of deploying products which are not based on combustion. So again, the point is to say, the lower the combustion, less combustions is a way for us to limit the risk for the future users of this type of products. So we said that's what we're going to do now. We're going to develop products which are having these characteristics. They don't burn anymore. Now the point is also to be very committed for a company like us. It's nice to talk, it's nice to have R&D, it's nice to develop ideas, but you need to be really behind seriously. I think I'm showing these numbers not to impress you about these numbers and the magnitude of these numbers, but to show you how serious this is. So this was for us, over the last 10 years, $6 billion being invested in R&D and manufacturing, just to shift what we've been doing from the past. As of that, you get facilities. You got our R&D center in Switzerland, which is a brand new facility that we call the Cube, which is based in Neuchâtel. And you got more than 400 scientists, some of the best in the world, that we could grab from many industries, including pharma, which is really interesting, to develop state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art research, because we are tobacco. So who's going to believe what we do? Okay, there are a lot of preconceived ideas and ideas from the past that comes with associated with the industry that I'm part of. And we say we got to now do something very different. So we got to come and try to become best in the world, best in class when it comes to research, and be very transparent about what we do, be very transparent about what we find, and publish our research and everything. So you have a lot of these scientists, and out of that you get a lot of patents. So for example, that's what I put on the chart. I think we are now the second patent filer in the Swiss market, and I think we're among the 50 top industries in EU, in the European Union, in terms of filing patents and coming with innovation, which are very important for us. Now the point and the purpose for us is out of that to develop platforms, different type of platforms. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but the point is to say, we are talking to smokers. We're talking only to adult smokers, people who have been smoking for years and years and years, and they are all different from each other, so each of them needs kind of a different opportunity to switch to something. Because you can give them products which are very, I would say, much better alternative, but if they don't find the pleasure into it, if they don't find some good reason to stick to it, they will not get this product, they will not purchase this product, and everybody's losing about that. So that's for us also to multiply the number of entry points and platforms. And we have one which is very big now that we focus mostly on, which is IQOS with heats, where we heat the tobacco product. And we have some other platforms which are kind of described here. Some of them already marketed and present in some markets around the world, some not yet. Now, one of the key learnings for us as a company, as Philip Morris, was to start realizing that we need to put the consumer in the center. And before, I would say we were a company which was really brand-centric, developing brands. We say we understand the consumer, the needs of the consumer, whatever, and we build brands. And we've been very successful building brands like Marlboro. But at some point, you need to shift a bit and understand that you got to pay more attention to the consumers and understand his needs. So that's a big learning for us, and I think that was a humble move that we had to make to realize that there are many things that we don't know. So we started like more than 20 years ago already. When it comes to product, we started to develop some first prototypes. At the time where for people these type of things were too big, they were not delivering on the satisfaction, the test was awful. That was very difficult, but it was good ways for us to learn. And we had what we introduced first in the US and in Japan in 1998. We had this product called Aqua. Okay, not working. Then 10 years later, we came with a product that we tested in Zurich and in Austria, which was called the Heat Bar. So another evolution, more miniaturized, because you get technology coming in, you get more ability to miniaturize the things and to improve also the test for the users, for the smokers, who say, why should I stick to this? Why should I switch to this type of product? I need to find something for me. And that was another proposition that we put in the market, and it was, like the other one, very strong failure. But we learned. And we started to learn when we were not just developing products based on engineers, okay, which comes with good ideas, a manufacturing process, an expectation from the consumer, but the consumer is out of the picture. So it comes out of a company who thinks we know better than the consumer. And we started to learn when we started to put, as I said before, the consumer at the center of the picture. And I wanted to talk to you now about the latest generation that we put, but also a lot of learnings. So I've got a quick video for you. point here is to show you continuum, learning, experimenting, things that maybe are obvious for some of you in the different companies that you're working in and or representing, but are not so obvious for us. We used to do cigarettes. It was pretty simple. We knew it for years and years and years and years and years. So we were perfecting, improving, but there was not so many learnings and not so many breakthroughs that we had to go through. And I think that's what I wanted to highlight now, is that in our case, and what I can learn and I can express also, is the fact that innovation goes beyond the product. Okay, so now we got a platform, we got this type of product, which is interesting because you get about 70% of the people who purchase this product today, they will use it permanently, what we say exclusively, or in predominant way. That's a very interesting formula, okay? 70% of the product, people who are going to use it, adopt it. Enormous. You don't get this very often around the world when it comes to product and product innovation, but it's after 20 years, okay? So we say we have 10,000 people who switch. We have about 6 million people who already moved away from cigarettes. They are not smokers for us anymore. They are into something different, a better alternative. But this came from a lot of learnings, again, that I want to reiterate and go back to what we're learning also today. So the fact that innovation goes beyond the product, as I said before. It started in Switzerland. And that's also something I'm very proud, because this idea was created in Switzerland and came from Switzerland and was co-developed with about 60 small companies, medium-sized companies, and also some startups in Switzerland to develop some technology, some things which are very, very high-tech, and I don't want to describe them too much, but which we had no clue how to do them. So we had to work with a network of different companies, which I think Switzerland can offer. Very high-tech in some areas, very interesting. And for us to co-develop things, but also to learn about some technology which were existing before, that some companies had developed in Switzerland, that we could retrofit and use in a different way, a different application, just for the manufacturing process. So you got an idea of companies in Bern, in Fribourg, in Vaud, in different areas, in Geneva, many companies which were involved in the first prototypes. And I think, again, as I said, it's a very interesting learning for us, a lot of investment. I think that's part of the progress in the company. The second point is also to go back to digital innovation. In our case, many IT solutions, many digital innovations were part of what we had to do to develop a more consumer-centric approach to consumer, to supporting the consumer, to addressing the needs of the consumer, to following the consumers, which we didn't do before. I mean, on cigarettes, that was not really the problem that we had. So also learnings and being able to develop and to co-develop some of these solutions. More interestingly, I would say in my particular case, in my current job, is also to acquire new skills and experience. So you move from a company which has been developing cigarettes for 80, 100 years, okay? And as you say, you learn it from, basically, everything is very much integrated. You're learning from generations and generations. You know very well your business, and to some extent, it's a simple thing. Now you're starting to incorporate a lot of new facets. You have the electronics, you have the new manufacturing process, you have new ways to communicate about this type of product, new experiences that you need, new support that you need to give to the consumers. And the first thing you have to do, and for us was very important for my generation, is to recognize that there is no way we can know all of this. So for us to start being much more open than we were before and acquiring talents outside and bringing a lot of new expertise within a company, which was not used to that. As I said, I'm 28 years in this company. You start at Philip Morris, you die at Philip Morris, basically, okay? Was the way. Okay, now it's very different. You need to get kids coming and telling you how to do this, how to do that, and recognize that you don't do. So your job, that you don't know. So your job becomes much more of an architect. Your job much more about trying to mix the older generations and new generations, trying to be more open-minded, integrate these people, integrate people with different mindset. When you have a very strong culture that you develop years and years and years and years, you incorporate people, it can be very difficult for them to accommodate and to feel pleased in a company like that to work with. So you have to adapt and change. For us, was also, in my case, in the Swiss market, to reinvent 90% of the jobs in the company. So we are about 200 people in the Swiss commercial area. We had to reinvent 90% of the job. You have to rethink what you do. You have to really relook at the overlaps that you might have, the old ways of doing things that we need to get rid of, accepting new ways. And that makes also the job very interesting and very, but also very challenging for everyone. When some people have been doing things for 10 years, 20 years, and then you say, no, guys, we're going to change that and drop it. it has a lot of implications. And for us, that was a major piece that we are currently working on, continuing to work on, reinventing these jobs, but more importantly, reinventing the way we organize ourselves. So some of the core processes. What is the strategy process in our case? What is the creative process in our case? What is the execution process in our case? What is the budget process in our case? So things that were done in a certain way for so many years that you have to reinvent. So maybe for some of you, they are not new things, but for us, they were big learnings. And Philip Morris used to do a lot of things by itself. Company would start, acquire things, and do them by themselves. Having now to work and to co-develop things with different partners was also a big learning. It also means for us challenging the way we are selling this type of product. I mean, before we used to be very simple as a business model. Cigarettes, you don't need to explain what a cigarette is. Everybody knows what a cigarette is. You put it in the marketplace, you have big brands behind, that works. And you think you're selling, but you're not selling. We had to relearn all this. We had to break down the adoption of the consumer from different facets, saying, okay, he needs to learn about it, he needs to experiment it, he needs to live with the product, he needs to be able to talk about it. So we had to break this down and rethink about that and rethink about the job behind. So it moved much more from business to business that we were in before to business to consumers. And putting the consumers, as I said before, in the center of the model and adapting ourselves to this. And that's very challenging on a daily basis. You need to rethink who you are. And then you realize that in this model, which I find that's one of my learnings that I would like to share, is also the fact that probably when you need to explain product like this for people who have no clue why they should shift to this product, what are the benefits of this product, you need to spend time with them. So the people in front of the consumers are probably the most important one. Then you have the people building the programs behind. They are the second one important. And then you start realizing that maybe the management, which I'm part of, are the least important. So your job as manager is very different. It's to work for the guys above you. So it's to flip the org chart and to say maybe management has the least important job or has a very different jobs than before, which is to serve the talent in the organization so they can operate faster and do their job better. And I think for us, for many of us, it's been also a very interesting journey. And I think also what I would like to say is in our case, especially when you're a cigarette maker, when you're Philip Morris, talking is fine. But now we're in 2019. We need to not talk, but walk the talk. So you need to talk less and say and do what you say, okay? Because people won't believe you otherwise. So it was very important for us to explain that we're talking only to other smokers. There are enough other smokers. We're cannibalizing our own brands. So starting with our own brands, starting with the consumer of our own brands, going and switching them to the products that we have. Saying and deciding to stop doing things on cigarette that we can still do in the Swiss market, for example, and stop advertising for this outside the point of sales, okay? And say, we're going to stop doing that to push the other products. And you take a big risk with that because there is no B plan. There is no plan B, okay? We said that's the way we go, and we're going to continue going this way. But it's not easy. You have to develop some very interesting communication tools with the community outside and prove what you do. And show the numbers, and show that what you're doing is real. You have to publish the research that you find, and make sure that people look at that. You have to invite independent researchers to back up what you do, and to see what you do. So it's not a secret word anymore. It's really about sharing, opening up. And I think that's also another learning, because I would say 10 years ago, I would have never come in a place like that to talk to you and to express what we are. We are a very different type of company, okay, with so many enemies outside, which I understand. Now we're different, we're changing, and we have to learn. So that's what I wanted to share with you. And to give you the opportunity of, if you're interested in, if you guys, some of you are smokers, if you have a problem of smoking around you, I came with some of my colleagues here tonight, so we have a little stand outside, which I think is interesting for you to discover this offer, to look at it and to ask yourself questions. If you're interested also to have demo in your company, if you have issues with that, it can be interesting. Because we develop also a TÜV certification for smoke-free company. So I'm not to do proselytism here, but I want you to know that it does exist, and we can change many things together. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Philippe, Leroux, thanks for sharing these ideas with us. I think you're in a very typical situation of a company which needs to change due to outside forces, but also because you think it's a better way. You're still doing your old core business, and now you're sort of moving into a new core business. And you shared some thoughts with us regarding the challenges you had. If you look back, what was the absolutely most difficult thing?
I think they were very difficult things, but they were also very interesting things and very important things. I think once you're in a company like Philip Morris, so you understand that you're developing a product that kills people if you're in cigarette business, for sure. So you have this, you're human beings, and you realize that. And there is a point where you find ways to address that. You find ways to develop better alternatives, and you say, I can help some people who have issues. I think immediately in the company, start having a very different mindset. There is something big for us to go after. People believe us or don't believe us, that's their problem. That's not our problem, because we believe very strongly in this. Okay, so it becomes a very important motto. It becomes a very deep thing for many of the employees. It brings different type of people who join the company for different reasons, because they say, I want to be part of that story. And for my generation to say, I'm able to contribute, to put something on the table for the people who smoke, who cannot quit smoking, who do not want to quit smoking, which is better for them. Okay? And I think that's a very strong thing. Once you have this, I mean, you rally. You have to go, you have to burn bridges, you have to say there is no plan B, as we say, you have to go and go for it. Because you have other companies who start seeing, oh, the reality, the business is changing. And for us, we did it before e-cigarettes, all this stuff existed. We started 20 years ago. There was no market, no need for that, okay? But there was a vision, and we stick to it, and you invest, you invest, you invest. You're a big company making pretty decent profit, you invest in this, but there is no market, but you create that. And at some point, I think the flip was when people started to realize that this product works, that you have an immediate adoption within the company itself, and you say, now we got to go for it. And then it's tough, very tough, but you have to go for it. Now you have also critics coming and say, but you're still selling cigarettes. And that's a very important thing that we have. If today we stop selling our brands, consumer will jump to competitive brands. So the challenge for us is to switch them as fast as possible and to continue to do that. And I know that many people are waiting for us to do that. And we do it. We remove some of our brands on a regular basis, including in Switzerland, to move to this type of product, to shift money from this old business to the new business, because we have to do it. There is no other way.
It's interesting what you say, because you prove true that having this sense of urgency to change is really a key driver for employees, but also for the people who you look at, who you target, the customers. If you were, let's say, the CEO of a Swiss insurance company, you couldn't say, my product is killing people. But you would still know that digitalization would change your world. Does that make any difference for you? Would you do it differently, the change?
I think my compass in all of this is always to go back to the consumer. Start understanding what this guy is looking for. Start to understand what he might not know that he's looking for, but try to understand the needs of this consumer and work everything against that. As long as you address the needs of the consumer of today, of tomorrow, you will always win. It's just a matter of doing it better than the others. But I think that's the obsession that we need to have. And for a company like us, we were brand-centric. Were you consumer-centric? I'm not so sure. And that's a very different thing. So my answer to you would be, whatever industry, is to try to understand, of course, the dynamics behind, but the most important, in FMCGs like we are, is to understand the needs of the consumer. And if you serve that, you always win. That's what I think.
There's one last question I would like to share with you. In digitalization, or in making use of the digitalization, it's very important to not only think about products. You say it's foremost important to think about customers. I share that. But you also indicated somehow that you're building platforms. How important is that? And how do you build those platforms?
I think you build a platform based on different potential avenues to address the needs of the consumer. Some are using tobacco because we said our starting point was to say people are familiar with tobacco. And in an equation, when you have someone who has been smoking for 20 years, you want to move him to something else. You can create something very alien, but the guy will say, it's too much for me. So you need to find some common things that he will find, some comfort zone, if I may say, for the consumer to move away. And that's what we did. So we started with that. And we have different platforms. Some of them are using tobacco, some of them are not using tobacco. But I think back to your point about digitalization, I think at the end, I talked about brand before, I talked about product, but I think now it's more and more experiences that you want. And I think the digitalization brings services, for example. The product and the services, they merge into an experience that are very important for the consumer. It's not just, I think, just a product. It's what surrounds the products, the experience that you get, the emotional experience that you get out of that, which is really important. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We'll
you.
hear from you more.